So give us your read on a Biden presidency. Is Wall Street right to be as concerned as some people at least are?
I don't think so. Wall Street was concerned before Bill Clinton was elected. Wall Street was concerned before Barack Obama was elected. Wall Street was concerned before John Kennedy was elected. The evidence is actually very clear that the stock market goes up faster during Democratic administrations than during Republican administrations. Corporate profits increase more rapidly during Democratic administrations than during Republican administrations. It stands to reason because effective economic strategies are from the middle out, not from the top down. And that's what tends to happen when we have Democratic administrations. We don't have anything to gain from the planet suffering from climate change. The market doesn't have anything to gain from crony capitalism and Peronism comes to America, and the erosion of property rights of the kind that we have seen in the last 4 years. There's no market stake in active incompetence of the kind we've seen in dealing with COVID. The vice president's program would keep top marginal tax rates way below where they were in the periods when the U.S. economy has grown most rapidly. So nobody can predict markets. Nobody can predict the future with great confidence. But to somehow engage in these kinds of scare tactics is to make forecasts that are about as accurate as Larry Kudlow's forecasts have been over the last year or two, when he's absolutely consistently been optimistic and frankly toadying for the policies and beliefs of his boss.
Larry, I also wonder whether Wall Street looks at least all of the factors it should be looking at. It tends to look at things like what is going to happen with taxes, what's going to happen with regulation, things like that. I read recently a paper by Adam Posen, somebody you know well from the Peterson Institute, who said if you look at, for example, the threat of hyperinflation, it's not so much how much money is created, it's actually a question of confidence in governments. If you go around the world, it's when the markets lose confidence in the government itself, something we've heard about a fair amount in this Democratic convention. The question is democracy itself really at stake?
Look, David, I don't think we're going to have hyperinflation in the United States. And I certainly do not want to be heard as forecasting that no matter how the election turns out, that we're going to have any kind of hyperinflation. That's really not my view. But what I do believe is that we've all got a great stake in the rule of law, in a system that's based on what you know rather than who you know, and in objectivity, whether it's when the government chooses to give contracts to companies, or the way in which taxes are collected, or the way in which rules are passed to protect the environment. And if you look, countries that have rules-based capitalism do much better than countries that have deals-based capitalism, where everything's a deal with the head of state. And that certainly has eroded over the Trump years. It's eroded in the favorable treatment of Trump properties. It's eroded in the non-transparency of the Trump administration with respect to tax rules and with respect to the Trump family's payment of taxes. It's happened in various respects with respect to those who are close to the administration. You saw it today in the accusations, and to be sure, they're just accusations, of private profiteering on the basis of the build a wall concept by Steve Bannon the brains behind the president's 2016 campaign. So seeing the United States descend even a small part of the way towards being a Argentine crony capitalist type state is something that I think people should be very discouraged about, very disturbed about, and want to stop at the earliest possible moment.
So, Larry, coming back to the question of Democrats and whether they could hurt Wall Street, I wonder if it's too simple to say Democrats versus Republicans. What about within the Democratic Party? Because we are seeing strains of two sort of different wings of it. A progressive party, maybe represented by Bernie Sanders, certainly by AOC, and on the other hand, more moderate. Do we know where Joe Biden would come out, and could that make a material difference to the markets, to the economy?
I think it's too simple to suggest that a Biden administration, or if we'd had a different administration, or if we're considering the preferences of whoever will be the Treasury Secretary, that it's going to come out all the way in one camp or all the way in another camp. My view is, for a whole set of reasons, with zero interest rates and a sluggish economy, we need to think differently and much more radically about fiscal deficits and fiscal policy than was the right way to think years ago. And progressives are pushing the party in the right direction. We surely need more progressive taxation than we have had, and the scaling back of tax progressivity, the opening of new loopholes and shelters, the special breaks for corporations that have occurred in the last 4 years have, in my view, been a grievous error. We certainly need to be much more aggressive about the environment. We need to lead the world, not trail the world, with respect to climate change. On the other hand, I don't believe in a politics of envy. I believe that we should raise money in ways that are fair, but it should not be our objective to tear down institutions that have been economically successful for the sake of tearing them down, which is a belief that some people have. I don't believe that it is the right thing to prosecute people unless we have evidence that they have committed crimes, just because there have been unfortunate economic outcomes. I think we need to be highly aggressive about climate change, that there's vastly more risk we will do too little than that we will do too much. But I think we need to think about market mechanisms that maximize efficiency. So I don't think governing comes down to deciding whether you're on team moderate or team progressive. I think governing, and this is something that with all his experience, Vice President Biden understands very well, that governing is about making prudent choices, issue by issue, tracking through all the consequences of the policies you adopt. And that's what I think we'll see. And I think the right kinds of pragmatic policies are going to involve more fiscal stimulus than they would have 10 years ago or 20 years ago. They are going to involve more attentiveness to inequality than they once would have, but they're not going to involve some kind of declaration of class war or imposition of socialism. And I'm confident Vice President Biden understands that.